Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the quantum observation chamber, her dark eyes fixed on the swirling patterns of entangled particles dancing within the containment field. 15 years of research had led to this moment. Behind her, the assembled team of Earth's finest physicists held their breath as the quantum state maintained stability for an unprecedented 3 minutes. The silence broke with a shrill alarm. Not from their experiment, but from the facility's early warning system. Multiple unknown vessels detected entering the solar system, the AI's calm voice announced. Configuration matches no known human designs. Sarah's first thought was that humanity's quantum research had drawn attention they weren't ready for. She was right, but not in the way she expected. The Galactic Empire's first contact team arrived with all the subtlety of a supernova. Their massive ships, crystalline structures that seemed to defy conventional engineering, positioned themselves in high Earth orbit. Their message, broadcast simultaneously in 3,000 human languages, dripped with condescension. Greetings, developing species of Sol 3. The Galactic Empire welcomes you to galactic civilization. Prepare for cultural assessment and integration. Admiral James Morrison, standing in the United Earth Defense Command Center deep beneath the Himalayas, watched the alien ships with practiced calm. They're not even trying to hide their weapon systems, he noted to his staff. Those crystal formations. Energy focusing arrays. They could glass half a continent. In the following days, the Galactic made their position clear. They considered themselves the pinnacle of galactic civilization, their 10,000 years of interstellar empire proof of their superiority. Humanity, barely 2 centuries into space travel, was expected to know its place. What the Galactic failed to notice, in their arrogance, were the subtle signs that should have given them pause. They missed the significance of Earth's quantum research program. They overlooked the fact that human ships, while smaller, used remarkably efficient drive systems. Most critically, they ignored the warnings from their own cultural assessment teams about humanity's unique characteristics. Species shows concerning levels of technological innovation rate, one report noted, buried under bureaucratic dismissals. Demonstrates unusual adaptation to warfare. Recommend caution in integration approach. The Empire's response was to accelerate their timeline. When humanity's diplomatic team, led by Ambassador Michael Okonjo, requested time to prepare Earth's populations for integration, the Galactic saw weakness rather than wisdom. High Commander Ixil of the Galactic Empire made the decision that would change the galaxy forever. A minor correction is needed, he announced to his staff. These humans must learn their place in the natural order. The attack came without warning. The Galactic ships, previously positioned around Earth, suddenly shifted their formation. Their target wasn't Earth itself, but humanity's pride and joy, the Armstrong Research Colony on Luna, home to 30,000 of humanity's brightest minds, including Sarah Chen's quantum research team. The energy beams struck with surgical precision. The colony's shields, advanced by human standards but primitive to the Galactic, collapsed in seconds. The atmospheric domes shattered. Emergency systems activated, sealing critical sections, but the damage was done. Thousands died in those first moments. What happened next shocked the Galactic. Earth went silent. Not a gradual reduction in communications, not desperate pleas for mercy, but complete and utter silence. Every transmission ceased. Every orbital facility went dark. Satellites reoriented themselves away from Earth, showing only the void to watching eyes. The Galactic celebrated what they saw as submission. High Commander Ixil even prepared a speech about the benefits of knowing one's place in the galaxy. They had no way of knowing that deep beneath the surface of Earth, in hardened bunkers and hidden facilities, humanity was far from defeated. In a secure chamber under the Himalayas, Admiral Morrison met with the combined Earth Defense Council. How long will the quantum shielding hold? He asked Sarah Chen, one of the few survivors from Armstrong Colony who had been on Earth during the attack. Indefinitely, she replied, her voice steady despite her losses. They can't detect what they can't observe. The quantum barrier will keep all our activities hidden. Morrison nodded. Then we proceed with Operation Long Night. All military production goes underground. All research facilities transfer to deep sites. All civilian populations begin the migration to subsurface arcologies. And then, asked a council member. And then we do what humanity does best, Morrison said, his eyes hard. We adapt. We prepare. We remember. In orbit, the Kelleran ships maintained their watch over a seemingly defeated world. Their sensors showed minimal activity, a civilization in shock and submission. They never detected the quantum fields blocking their scans, never realized that beneath the surface, humanity was transforming itself. The silence that the Kellerans took for submission was actually the calm before a storm that would take 15 years to gather, but would reshape the galaxy when it finally broke. In her new laboratory, deep beneath the Antarctic ice, Sarah Chen looked at the prototype of humanity's revenge. The quantum phase drive hummed softly, bending reality in ways the Kellerans had never imagined possible. On her desk sat a photo of her research team from Armstrong Colony. They thought they were teaching us our place in the galaxy, she whispered to the photo. Instead, they taught us how far we still had to go. And when we return, we'll show them just how well we learned that lesson. The silence continued, and the Kellerans continued to watch, never realizing they were watching their own doom quietly take shape in the darkness beneath their feet. 15 years of silence changes a species. Deep beneath Earth's surface, humanity had created an entirely new civilization, one born from necessity and forged in secret. General Marcus Way stood at the observation deck of Forge Station Alpha, carved into the heart of the Rocky Mountains. Below him stretched a cavern large enough to house small cities, filled with the skeletal frames of ships that would redefine warfare. Quantum phase drives pulsed with ghostly blue light as technicians ran final tests. Status report, he called out to his second-in-command, Colonel Diana Patel. Phase testing on the Hyperion prototype exceeded expectations, sir, Diana replied, her augmented eyes scanning multiple data streams simultaneously. The ship successfully phased through 3 kilometers of solid rock without leaving a trace. Dr. Chen's quantum tunneling technology is ready for full deployment. Marcus nodded, remembering the day 15 years ago when the Kellerans had shattered Armstrong Colony. He'd been a captain then, watching helplessly as thousands died. Now, he commanded humanity's ghost fleet, ships that could turn intangible at will. And the Kellerans? He asked. Still maintaining their protective observation orbit. Their patrol patterns haven't changed in a decade. Latest intelligence suggests they've actually reduced their fleet presence, considering Earth a solved problem. In another chamber, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean floor, Dr. Sarah Chen had aged but her eyes still burned with the same intensity. She stood before a holographic display showing the quantum entanglement matrix that would link Earth's ghost fleet into a single, coordinated force. The quantum AI is ready, she announced to her team. Every ship will share targeting data, tactical analysis, and strategic coordination through quantum links. No lag, no interference, no possibility of interception. Her assistant, Dr. James Rodriguez, looked up from his console. The Kellerans still think we're using radio waves and basic fusion drives, he said with a grim smile. They haven't detected a single test launch in 15 years. That's because there's nothing to detect, Sarah replied. Quantum phase drives don't disturb spacetime in ways their sensors can read. We're invisible to them, just as we planned. In the massive underground shipyards beneath Mars, Admiral Helena Foster watched as the final pieces of humanity's revenge took shape. The Ghost Fleet comprised over 300 ships, each capable of phasing through solid matter, each armed with weapons that could strike through any known defense. Combat simulation complete, reported Captain Michael Okonjo, son of the ambassador who had tried to negotiate peace 15 years ago. The quantum AI predicts a 98% success rate against current Kelleran ship configurations. Helena studied the massive holographic display showing their first strike targets. And the civilian evacuation? Complete as of last month. Every human settlement in the solar system has been relocated underground. What the Kellorans see on the surface are automated decoys and empty shells. We can begin operations without risking a single civilian life. The waiting had been the hardest part. For 15 years, humanity had maintained its silence while the Kellorans watched their empty cities, their abandoned spaceways. For 15 years, they had built and trained and prepared, all while their enemies grew complacent. In a secure chamber beneath Geneva, the Earth Defense Council convened its final meeting before the operation began. Representatives from every major nation sat around a quantum-shielded table, their faces illuminated by soft blue light. The Ghost Fleet is ready, General Wei reported. All ships are crewed, all weapons systems tested. Dr. Chen's quantum technology has been fully integrated into every vessel. The tactical AI networks are operational, Sarah added. Every ship will fight as part of a single, coordinated force. The Kellorans won't be able to predict or counter our movements. Admiral Foster's hologram flickered above the table. Mars shipyards report all production quotas met. We have enough ships to hit every major Kelloran military installation in this sector simultaneously. Council President Zhao looked around the table. 15 years ago, the Kellorans tried to teach us our place in the galaxy. They thought our silence meant submission. They thought we had accepted their dominion. She stood, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's resolve. They were wrong. In orbit, the Kelloran patrol ships maintained their lazy vigil over what they thought was a defeated world. Their sensors showed the same quiet cities, the same minimal activity they'd seen for 15 years. They never noticed the quantum fluctuations beginning to build deep beneath the surface. In her quarters aboard the flagship Hyperion, Sarah Chen touched the old photo of her Armstrong colony team one last time. We didn't just learn our place in the galaxy, she whispered. We learned how to change it. Throughout the solar system, in hidden bases and underground shipyards, humanity's ghost fleet powered up their quantum drives. 15 years of silence was about to end, and when it did, the galaxy would never be the same. General Wei stood on his bridge, watching the final preparations. In less than 24 hours, Operation Thunderclap would begin. The Kellorans would learn too late that humanity's silence hadn't been submission, it had been the sound of a storm gathering strength. All ships report ready, Diana announced. Marcus nodded, thinking of Armstrong colony, of 15 years of waiting, of humanity's transformation in the dark. Send the signal, he ordered. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity has become. Throughout the solar system, quantum encrypted channels carried a single message to every ship, every base, every soldier and sailor of humanity's ghost fleet, remember Armstrong. Operation Thunderclap begins at dawn. The Kelloran defense station above their primary shipyard at Nexus Prime had stood unthreatened for 3 centuries. Commander Vaxel considered his posting there a peaceful retirement, watching over a sector that hadn't seen combat since before he was born. The first sign that everything was about to change was subtle, a slight quantum fluctuation that his sensors dismissed as background radiation. The second sign was impossible to miss, as 30 human ships simply materialized inside the defense perimeter, having phased through his supposedly impenetrable shields. Impossible, he whispered, staring at vessels that seemed to flicker between existence and non-existence. Their hulls rippled with quantum distortions that made them appear almost ghostly. General Marcus Wei's voice cut through all Kelloran frequencies, this is the human ghost fleet to Kelloran command. 15 years ago, you taught us about power. Now, we'll teach you about patience. The Hyperion fired its first shot. The quantum phase cannon didn't just impact the shipyard's shields, it passed through them as if they didn't exist, its beam shifting matter between dimensions. 3 kilometers of Kelloran shipyard simply vanished, converted into quantum probability waves that dispersed into nothingness. Across Kelleran space, the same scene repeated itself. Humanity's Ghost Fleet struck 60 targets simultaneously, their quantum-linked AI coordinating attacks with impossible precision. Ships that could ignore shields and solid matter, weapons that could erase matter from existence, and crews driven by 15 years of focused purpose proved to be a combination the Kellerans had never imagined possible. On the bridge of the Hyperion, Sarah Chen monitored the quantum network linking the fleet. All strikes proceeding according to simulations, she reported. The Kelleran defense grid cannot track our phase shifts. Admiral Foster's voice came through the quantum link. Second wave, commence Operation Thunderclap Phase 2. Target their command and control centers. The Ghost Fleet moved like dancers through space, their quantum drives allowing them to ignore traditional physics. They phased through planets to strike bases on the far side, appeared inside space stations to destroy them from within, and turned solid meteor shields into nothing more than suggestions. In the Kelleran capital, High Commander Ixil watched in horror as reports flooded in. 15 years of silence had lulled them into complacency, and now they were paying the price. How, he demanded of his staff. How did they develop this technology without us detecting it? The answer came in the form of a quantum transmission that broke through their strongest encryption. You taught us to be quiet, Sarah Chen's voice echoed through their command center. So we learned to work in silence. On Earth, the Defense Council watched through quantum-linked feeds as humanity's vengeance unfolded. The Kelleran Empire, which had stood unchallenged for 10,000 years, was facing an enemy that could ignore their strongest defenses and strike at will. Multiple Kelleran battle groups attempting to engage, Colonel Patel reported. They're still trying to fight us with conventional weapons. Marcus watched as Kelleran energy beams passed harmlessly through his phased ships. Show them why that won't work, he ordered. The Ghost Fleet's response was devastating. Quantum phase torpedoes passed through Kelleran shields and hull armor before rematerializing inside their ships. Critical systems simply ceased to exist, converted to quantum probability waves that collapsed into nothingness. Kelleran High Command is attempting to contact us, Diana announced. 15 years, Marcus replied. They had 15 years to talk. Now they learn what silence truly means. The battle, if it could be called that, continued across Kelleran space. Traditional combat doctrine meant nothing against ships that could ignore physical barriers and weapons that could erase matter from existence. The mighty Kelleran fleet, terror of 1,000 species, found itself fighting shadows that struck with lightning precision. Sarah monitored the quantum network as damage reports from the Kelleran side grew exponentially. Their entire command structure is in chaos, she reported. They have no defense against quantum phase technology. Through the quantum link, Admiral Foster's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. Begin Phase 3. Target their industrial capacity. The Ghost Fleet split into smaller groups, each attacking key Kelleran production facilities. Shipyards, weapons factories, and power plants vanished under quantum phase fire. 15 years of human preparation methodically dismantled an empire that had stood for millennia. In his command center, High Commander Ixil watched his empire crumble. The humans hadn't just developed new technology, they had reimagined the very nature of space warfare. Every strategy, every defense, every tactic the Kellerans had perfected over 10,000 years meant nothing against an enemy that could ignore physical laws at will. Send the surrender signal, he ordered, his voice heavy with the weight of history. But before his communications officer could comply, quantum distortions appeared directly inside the command center. The Hyperion phased through the station's walls, becoming solid inside the heart of Kelleran power. General Wei's voice echoed through the chamber. 15 years ago, you destroyed Armstrong Colony to teach us our place. Now, we're going to teach you about consequences. As the quantum phase cannons powered up, Sarah Chen looked at the photo she always carried, her team from Armstrong Colony. We learned our lesson, she whispered. I hope you're ready to learn yours. The storm that humanity had spent 15 years preparing was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning to show its true strength. Grand Admiral Zena of the Kelleran Empire stood before the Emergency Council, her crystalline uniform dulled with the dust of recent battles. "We've lost contact with 40% of our major military installations," she reported, her voice tight with controlled fury. "The humans, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered." The assembled Kelleran leadership, representatives of a civilization that had dominated the galaxy for 10 millennia, sat in stunned silence as tactical displays showed another fleet base simply vanishing from existence. "Deploy the 7th Strike Force," High Commander Ixil ordered, his authority crumbling with each passing hour. "Use the temporal charge generators. If they can phase through matter, we'll distort time itself around them." On the bridge of the Hyperion, Sarah Chen detected the massive energy buildup of the Kelleran counterattack. "They're attempting to create temporal distortion fields," she announced to General Wei. "Quite impressive, actually. A week ago, this might have concerned us." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "Show them why it won't work now." The Kelleran 7th Strike Force, pride of the Empire's fleet, emerged from hyperspace with weapons charged. 300 capital ships, each equipped with experimental temporal generators, moved to engage the human ghost fleet. Through the quantum network linking all human ships, Admiral Foster's voice was calm, "Execute Pattern Omega. Let's show them what 15 years of preparation really means." The ghost fleet's response defied conventional physics. As the Kellerans fired their temporal weapons, attempting to trap the human ships in bubbles of distorted time, the quantum drives adapted instantly. The human vessels didn't just phase through matter, they phased through time itself. "Quantum temporal synchronization holding," Sarah reported, watching as her equations proved themselves in combat. "The AI network is compensating for all temporal distortions." The Kelleran weapons, which should have frozen the human ships in moments of stretched time, passed harmlessly through them. The Ghost Fleet's quantum drives adjusted their phase state to match the temporal flow, making them immune to the Empire's last desperate technology. Colonel Patel's augmented eyes tracked the battle through multiple quantum dimensions. "They're trying to adapt their shields to our phase frequency," she noted. "Too late. We've already shifted to quantum probability distribution." The human attack that followed demonstrated just how far Earth's technology had advanced in 15 years of silence. Quantum phase cannons fired salvos that existed in multiple temporal states simultaneously, overwhelming even the advanced Kelleran defenses. In the Kelleran flagship, Grand Admiral Zena watched in horror as her mighty fleet was systematically dismantled. "How?" she demanded. "How did they advance so far, so fast?" The answer came through all channels, Dr. Chen's voice carrying 15 years of focused determination. "You taught us that we were primitive. So we stopped showing you our progress. You taught us that we were weak. So we learned to be strong in silence. You taught us to fear you. So we learned to become what you fear most." The Ghost Fleet moved with impossible coordination, their quantum-linked AI allowing them to function as a single organism. Ships phased through each other, combining attacks in ways that defied traditional space combat doctrine. Multiple vessels would occupy the same space, firing through each other in synchronized patterns that overwhelmed any defense. "Message from Earth Command," Diana announced. "The quantum sensors have detected additional Kelleran forces gathering at their core worlds." Marcus nodded. "They're consolidating for a final stand." "Good. Transmit tactical data to all ships. Prepare for final phase of Operation Thunderclap." Sarah looked up from her quantum calculations. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies, sir. Requesting parley." 15 years, Marcus replied, thinking of Armstrong Colony. "For 15 years, we learned, we built, we prepared. Now they want to talk." He paused, watching as another Kelleran battle group tried unsuccessfully to engage the Ghost Fleet. "Transmit our terms. Unconditional surrender. Immediate withdrawal from all occupied territories. and reparations for Armstrong Colony. The battle continued as the Kellerans considered their options. The Ghost Fleet, now revealing its full capabilities, demonstrated combat techniques that would rewrite military doctrine across the galaxy. Ships phased through planets to attack from impossible angles, weapons fired existed in quantum superposition until impact, and the AI network coordinated it all with inhuman precision. "Their command structure is collapsing," Diana reported. "Multiple fleet groups are going autonomous, trying to retreat." On her quantum display, Sarah watched the empire that had dominated space for 10 millennia break apart under human assault. "They never understood," she said quietly. "They thought they were teaching us about power. Instead, they taught us about necessity. They thought they were showing us our limitations. Instead, they showed us how far we could go." The Kelleran 7th Strike Force, their temporal weapons useless against quantum phase technology, began to break formation. Grand Admiral Zena, watching her life's work crumble around her, finally understood. The humans hadn't just developed better weapons, they had evolved beyond traditional warfare itself. As the battle drew to its inevitable conclusion, Marcus sent a final message to the Kelleran leadership. 15 years ago, you tried to teach humanity its place in the galaxy. You succeeded. Our place is wherever we choose to make it. Remember that lesson. It's the last one you'll teach us. The storm that humanity had brought to the galaxy was changing everything, and the lightning strikes of their ghost fleet were just the beginning of a new era in space. The Great Hall of the Kelleran Empire, which had stood untouched for 10,000 years, now hosted something unprecedented, their formal surrender. The crystalline walls, once symbolic of Kelleran superiority, reflected the ghostly forms of humanity's quantum phase ships hovering outside. High Commander Ixil, his ornate uniform stripped of medals, stood before the assembled representatives of Earth's Defense Council. The terms were non-negotiable. 15 years of silence had given humanity time to plan not just their victory, but its aftermath. "The terms are simple," Admiral Foster declared, her hologram towering over the Kelleran leadership. "Every world you've subjugated will be given independence. Your military will be reduced to defensive capabilities only. An Armstrong colony will be rebuilt, at your expense, as a memorial and center for galactic scientific cooperation." In orbit above the Kelleran capital, General Wei and Dr. Chen watched from the Hyperion's bridge as the empire that had once dismissed humanity as primitive signed away its dominion over 1,000 worlds. The quantum network transmitted the ceremony across human space, where billions watched from their underground cities, ready to finally return to the surface. "They're still trying to understand how we did it," Sarah noted, monitoring quantum communications. "Their scientists can't comprehend how we advanced so far in just 15 years. Marcus smiled grimly. "They never will understand. They thought isolation would weaken us. Instead, it focused us. Their greatest mistake wasn't attacking Armstrong Colony, it was giving us time to respond." Throughout the galaxy, the news spread: humanity, the species that had gone silent for 15 years, had emerged with technology that redefined the possible. The quantum phase drives, the AI network, the weapons that could ignore physical barriers, every advancement represented a leap that should have taken centuries. In a private chamber off the Great Hall, Sarah met with a group of young Kelleran scientists, their curiosity overwhelming their pride. "Your quantum phase technology," one asked, "it breaks fundamental laws of physics." "No," Sarah corrected, thinking of her old team at Armstrong. "It shows that your understanding of those laws was incomplete. 15 years ago, you thought you were teaching us about limitations. Instead, you taught us to look beyond them." On Earth, the Defense Council convened one final time in their underground chamber. The screens showed ships across the galaxy, not just human vessels, but representatives from dozens of formerly subjugated species, coming to seek alliance with the power that had broken the Kelleran Empire. "We need to decide what kind of power we'll be," President Zhao addressed the council. "We've proven we can destroy. Now we need to prove we can build." Colonel Patel's augmented eyes scanned the incoming diplomatic requests. Every former Kelleran subject world wants our protection. They're afraid of what might fill the power vacuum. Then we show them something new, Admiral Foster replied. Not an empire built on fear, but an alliance built on innovation. We teach them what we learned, that true strength comes from adaptation, not domination. The quantum network carried humanity's message across space, an invitation to join a new galactic cooperative, where technology and knowledge would be shared, not hoarded. Where strength would be measured not in ships and weapons, but in scientific advancement and mutual support. In the ruins of Armstrong Colony, now being reconstructed by Kelleran engineering teams under human supervision, Sarah stood before a memorial to those lost 15 years ago. The quantum phase technology that had won the war would now be used to build something unprecedented, a research center where species from across the galaxy could work together. We did it, she whispered to the names etched in quantum-stabilized crystal. We showed them humanity's true strength. Not just our technology, but our ability to learn, to adapt, to transform ourselves when necessary. General Wade joined her at the memorial, looking out at the construction. They thought silence meant submission, he said quietly. They never understood that silence can also mean preparation. Focus. Evolution. The galaxy was changing. The quantum technology humanity had developed was already being adapted for peaceful purposes, phase drives for exploration, quantum networks for communication, AI systems for scientific research. The storm of war was giving way to a renaissance of cooperation and discovery. In the Kelleran capital, now host to delegations from 100 worlds, High Commander Ixil watched ships from former subject worlds arriving to join the new cooperative. We ruled through force for 10,000 years, he said to his advisors. They defeated us in 15 days, and now they offer partnership instead of subjugation. Perhaps we still have much to learn. Sarah's quantum sensors detected ships approaching Earth, diplomatic vessels from the farthest reaches of known space, coming to join the new order humanity had created. The silence was over, but its lesson would echo through history: never mistake patience for weakness, and never give an innovative species time to prepare. The storm had passed, but its effects would reshape the galaxy forever. Humanity had proven itself not just as warriors, but as teachers, innovators, and leaders. The 15 years of silence had transformed them, and now they would transform the galaxy, not through force, but through the very qualities the Kellerans had once dismissed: adaptation, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of possibility.